Attack on Titan Season 3, Part 1. So we are covering volumes 13 through the first half of 18 and episodes 39 through 49. So that's what we're covering today. So I haven't finished Part 3 yet, but there's already so much to talk about. So this section starts with pandemonium. Humanity needs to come together to survive, but what they do instead is fighting for themselves and bids for power. And that's kind of the theme of this whole section. We start out with finding out that Nick was tortured for information and killed, and so they captured his torturers and tortured them for information. And realizing that while the cadets signed up to fight Titans, they ended up fighting humans, inside the walls and outside of the walls too. They now have enemies that have different ideas, just because they're in a different group. That's not the fight that they wanted to fight, but it's where they are, and now they have to reckon with that. That's what the cadets are dealing with at the beginning of this section, and that's what they are reeling with, this sort of recontextualization of not only the world realizing that the Titans are humans, but also of their small contained world inside of these walls, realizing that it's not humans against Titans, but it's this thing that we've been discussing this whole time, which is that humanity has to band together to survive. And they just won't. Like, it's just, that's not what humanity chooses to do. Instead, they choose survival of the fittest, and they choose bids for power. Or at least that's what's happened historically. And that's what they kind of have to move against and correct in this situation. At least that's the repeated theme that I keep coming back to. And this ties really well into the conflict that we have with the Rice family as well. So this whole section of the story is burdened with lore information. It feels to me like the story has slowed down tremendously. It's not these big, massive, colossal reveals of, there's a traitor in our midst. Who is it? Okay, big, giant Titan fight. Oh no, there's more traitors, and here they are. They were sleeping next to us this whole time. Okay, big, colossal fight, which is very reductive of what we've done up to this point. But it's been like big reveals, big action, humongous craziness. And now it seems like what we're doing is a much more subtle storytelling, and it's a lot of expansion of the world. It's answering a lot of questions while asking many, many more, because those answers reveal a lot of breadth to this world, how wide it's going, how expansive things are, and it's a lot to keep in my brain. So big reveals have happened here. We are really honing in on the royal line now, the true royal line, the Rice family, and going back to the progenitor Titan. I can never remember what it's called. Going back to the progenitor Titan, who over 100 years ago built up these walls to protect humanity from the Titans, and then erased their memories of the history that was before this in its bid for peace. And now this Titan is passed down person to person through the Rice family line. And the fate of the Rice family is essentially, you have to kill your family member to take on their power. And when you take on their power, you're also taking on the weight of human history, the knowledge, the burden of knowledge that everyone else has been protected from, kept from. And you also will have the ideals of the first king put on you as well. And that comes with some kind of tormenting as you're like reckoning. The way I'm interpreting it is reckoning with your own self and your own ideals, and these ideals that are kind of wrestling within you because you've taken these on as well. And it's such a fascinating concept. It's such a fascinating twist on a familiar concept. This idea of like the knowledge is being kept from everyone for the sake of what seems to be best for everyone, but this one person is burdened with the knowledge, and they choose to follow the course, even though that course kind of tortures them because they know what the cost is to go forward, and everyone else is kept in the dark for for everyone else is good, but this person has to deal with the burden, right? Like, that's a familiar concept. It's one that's been done many times in literature and in media and in history. And I love it. I love the concept. And this is such an interesting twist, an interesting take on this familiar idea. I'm really enjoying it. Rod Reiss, I have feelings about. There's a whole rant in the vlog. I had to, there was a point where I caught myself and I was like, you gotta dial this back, ma'am. Because I have so many feelings about Rod Reiss. I have so many feelings about this man who, okay, don't just repeat your rant. Hold on, let me get it together and be reasonable. By the way, if you're this far into my Attack on Titan videos, I assume you know this, but for each section of the story that I cover, I do a review where I reflect on the section as a whole and try to have a discussion on the core plot points and themes and things that were explored. And it's like a standard review. And then we have the vlog that comes directly after, which is volume by volume check-ins of me digging into every minute detail and spiraling. So that's going to be here on Monday. So Rod Reiss. The Reiss family is very fascinating to me because we have several figureheads. Yuri, I don't remember how to say his name, who clearly very deeply wanted what was best for humanity. He clearly wanted so badly to choose the right path for them, to do what he needed to do to protect humanity. And he was also really burdened with the persecution that's happened with these minority races in history's past. And I think that's a big reason why he ended up working with the Ackermans, because he's like, you deserve to hate me for what our history is. And so trying to kind of mend that is the way I'm interpreting it with the amount of information that I have at this point. And obviously, Frida was an incredibly noble girl who, she was considered like the darling of the royal family, who would go through and try to give love and kindness to everyone, to all of her subjects, including Krista, who was abandoned and alone and who felt like no one loved her and no one wanted her. And Frida, though she couldn't allow Krista to remember her for her own sake, for her own protection. She would have to erase her memory each time. She still gave her that love and kindness. But then you have Rod Reiss, who, oh my goodness, not only did he not care about Historia, Krista, at all, and had his children and had his family and didn't consider her until they all died. And then he was like, okay, let me go get the reject then. And then he manipulates her in the way he distributes information, telling her about this noble history, about this Titan who protected everyone in our family line, who's doing this amazing work. And wow, look at Frida. What a wonderful figurehead she was. What a noble, amazing, sacrificing person. And once you take on this mantle, once you bring Frida's memories back, and once you do this thing that all of our generations before us have done, you'll become like a god. He uses this language that kind of personifies this mantle that she'd be taking on in this majestic light. And it's not until he's pressed, it's not until Krista says, I remember Frida being kind of tormented. Like, she would be herself, and then all of a sudden it was like she was possessed by this other person, this other ideals that she has inside of her, and she would just change. I remember her being so tormented by this burden that she was carrying. And he's like, okay, yeah, so maybe a little bit of that. And then he goes, but it's going to be great. This is amazing. And she presses him again. And then finally he reveals that, okay, yeah, you'll be taking on the ideals of the first king as well. So it's like, you're also surrendering a bit of your free will, at least is the way I'm interpreting this. What if she doesn't agree with the ideals of the first king? What if she were to learn the ideals of the first king before taking all this on and then realize, I don't agree with his path. I don't agree with the course that he's chosen for humanity, for peace. But it doesn't matter because now she's taken on his ideals without knowing what those ideals are. It seems like you're forfeiting a piece of your own free will by taking this on as well. While I think Frida was distinctly Frida, she was also heavily influenced and even was espousing the same kind of ideals and what she was teaching other people, like the same words, the same verbiage of what her uncle did before her, which shows that they are heavily influenced by the first king to the point that they're espousing his ideals in the same manner. So I just feel like I loved the way this played out. These reveals that were told and how layered it was and how secretive it was and how much Rod was manipulating the information for his daughter and manipulating her feelings of feeling abandoned and lost, and like this would be what would make her accepted. And then Krista standing up to him. I'm getting way ahead of myself. I'm so off my notes right now. Hold on. Rod said that the power wouldn't work in Eren. The power of this Titan doesn't have the same effect. Eren can't use it right. And it has to be in the Rice family. And I'm just gonna say, I don't trust a word out of this man's mouth. Not a word do I believe from him. So maybe he was telling the truth, but I don't trust him. He's proven himself untrustworthy. So sorry, Rod, I'm not taking it. I think that it's possible that he was lying and he just said those things so that to manipulate Historia into murdering her friend so that she could have the power, because he wanted to keep it in his family, because he wanted the Rice family to be the ones that maintain the control. But it's possible that Eren can unlock this too, which could be good, could be bad. Honestly, I don't know I don't know where Eren's story's going. But if the Rice family does get this power again, then they do have the ability to re-alter everyone's memories and to basically undo all of the things that have been done up to this point when the Rice family weren't in control. All of the stuff that the military has done, that the cadets have pushed back, like, and that's a terrifying amount of power to put in someone's hands, in anyone's hands, and to try to protect and maintain with one family that have this control. That's a terrifying amount of control. And imagine putting that kind of pressure on a child. Like, I don't know how old Krista is right now, but I don't think that she's over 16. Maybe she's 17. What do I know about timelines? The amount of pressure that's being put on her to, like, okay, you're going to take on the burdens of humanity and also the ideals of someone long gone, and we're just going to keep on trucking on this path that he's chosen for everyone. And you also have to murder your friend in order to do it, and now you have this, like, immeasurable power of the strongest Titan in all of history and the ability to rewrite history in people's minds. Like, what a burden to put on a child, which is also, the theme of the story. But also control in general was really focused on for this whole section of the story. Refusing to let people ask questions, or if they break rules in a way that would threaten or give them answers, then they're eliminated. And the people that they're controlling are primarily one major race living within these walls. It seems that the forgotten history is that the race that could be controlled were put behind the walls and fed a false history, and the races that disputed this system of rule were persecuted, and the races that couldn't be controlled, that their minds couldn't be altered. And even those races withheld the secret of the history from their descendants in order to protect them. So there's this control that's happening externally. If you ask questions, if you, like for instance with Erwin's father, if you believe a history other than what we've told, if you try to take a hot air balloon somewhere, if you try to make weaponry that could potentially go against the authority of the government, if you attempt to do anything outside of what we've deemed acceptable, then we'll snuff you out. And just the same, if we can't control you mentally either, if we can't alter your memories, then you'll be persecuted. So it's this bid for power, this attempt at control, is a very big emphasis that's been put in this section of the story. But also in the realm of bloodlines, one thing that was explained in this is, well, first of all, that the Ackermans are in fact a special bloodline and that they do have super special powers, which is something that I honed in on back in volume 1, I think it was, when Mikasa had that burst of special power when after Eren tried to rescue her and then he was under threat and she tried to save him. That's something that I've been like, what is up with Mikasa? It seems like something. I don't even remember if I've talked about it in my reviews proper or if it's all been in the vlogs, but that's something that I've really kind of fixated on. And it was so rewarding. It was so exciting to see that, yes, there was something there. They actually do, Mikasa, Levi, Kenny, they all have this ability of special strength. But in the realm of bloodlines, one thing, okay, so what they did was they talked about how there's this one race that has been put behind the walls, and they're the protected race. And then there's all the rest of them, all the minority races that they can't be controlled. So they're put out or persecuted. And then you have the Ackermans who can't be mind controlled. They can't have their minds altered. And what they said was the minority races that couldn't be controlled, they found a different way to control them. That was the dialogue. That was the text. And then shortly thereafter, they explained the Ackermans can't be controlled. The Ackermans were once the sword and shield of the Rod family, but now their relationship has been severed. And in fact, the Rice family fears the Ackermans because they can't control them. So here's the thing. Here's my sort of theory / hope. Since we have 2 super special bloodlines that were introduced back to back, I don't super love that on its face. But what could be interesting is if one of the abilities that the progenitor Titan, one of the abilities that the progenitor Titan has, and therefore that the Rice family has, is if they can't alter your mind, can they alter your bloodline? Because it said for those that they couldn't alter their memories of, they found a way to control them in other ways. And then very shortly after, they say also the Ackermans have the super special bloodline and they were the protectors of the Rice family. So I wonder if the way the Rice family chose to control the Ackermans is by altering their bloodline to make them the Rice's protectors. But their ideals still clashed. They still didn't believe in the correct path for peace, and so they still fractured because they still had that free will. Is free will a big theme in this story? Because I'm picking up so many free will themes, and I might be like way off with that. Or I guess I should say I'm picking up so many free will hints in what could be explored with a lot of these different plot lines. Okay, so in this section, we saw Levi's squad coming and fighting for them, rescuing Eren and Krista. Kenny made the choice to let Eren fight for his life and not just be taken like Rod wanted. And we saw the most disgusting Titan ever birthed. Oh my goodness, what a horrifying sight. And Krista pushed to display to the people who she was as their queen by finishing her father off in this fight. I was so proud of Historia in this section. Going from almost killing her friend to gain her father's approval, to standing up to her father and breaking free from her chains of trying to be what everyone else wanted her to be. And instead, she fought for what she believed in, which was helping those that feel no one needs them. And that desire is birthed from her in her own life experiences as an unloved and unwanted child. And it affects the way that she leads as the new queen. The way I'm taking all this at this point, and keep in mind, I'm aware that I'm going to misinterpret a lot of things at this point in the story because a lot of it is the beginnings of information, and all I'm doing is taking those beginnings, taking in that information, and then kind of extrapolating from there. So I'm going to be wrong on some of this stuff. So, I mean, you can say what you want in the comments. And I'm just letting you know that I'm aware that a lot of my guesses are going to be wrong. But here's what I'm pulling from the scene right now, is it seems that there's a cycle that's being emphasized in this story as well. I've mentioned some of the ways. Another way is in the fact that, Nick was tortured. And so then the friends of Nick take the torturer and start torturing him, and then even as he's being tortured, he's saying, like, I have to step aside, my role has been usurped, so now you're filling that role. And it's kind of like talking about that cycle. And we have the cycle of the Rice family of them taking, killing their family member, taking on that mantle, and then just continuing the ideals of the first king, and that cycle continuing. And what we're getting, and as well as in Eren, the cycle is emphasized, but I have that later in my notes, so we'll talk about Eren in a minute. And what we're getting in Krista's section here in the caverns is that cycle continuing, or at least Rod trying to force it to continue by putting the needle in her hands and saying, go, do it now, putting all this pressure on her, manipulating the information so that it appears more appealing to her so that she'll do it, wanting her to want his approval, trying to act like a father figure to her, even though he very clearly has not cared about her entire life. And Kenny, too, is like, calling him out on that. Like, this guy does not care about you. He's lying and manipulating you. I really love Kenny's character. So here she is, nearly going along in that cycle for her father's approval, but instead she breaks the vial, and in doing so, breaks that cycle as well, rejects the cycle that has been going on for 100 years, and instead says, I'm doing this my way. So what she's doing is, she is, as far as I can tell, still following the path that she would have followed had she taken on that mantle, had she taken on the Titan powers and the king's ideals. But she's doing it with her own ideals. And she's doing it with her own beliefs of what's right and the way she needs to conduct herself. So she is still taking on, I'm still going to be the queen. I'm still going to lead the people. I'm still going to reenact the Rice bloodline as the leaders. But I'm not doing it with the ideals of the first king. I'm doing it with what I believe is right, which is fighting for the people who believe themselves to be unwanted. And again, maybe I'm projecting, but this is another way where I see the potential of exploration of free will, where she's breaking the cycle and keeping her free will intact, keeping her ideals intact. And she's following the same path, but because she's doing it her way instead of the same tried and true cyclical way, now maybe we'll actually see progress. Now we'll maybe actually see humanity come to some sort of peace. I loved the scene where she learns that she's royalty and she wants to reject the position, but Levi pushes her and says, I'm fine with playing the role of the lunatic who kills people like that. I choose the hell of humans killing each other over the hell of being eaten. At least that way, all of humanity doesn't have to be damned. He won't stop fighting, no matter what, even if he has to choose something that feels like hell to him. But if she won't give up, if she'll keep fighting too, then they can choose a better way. And all through this story, Levi has been the one delivering that tough love and forcing people to choose. He even did it again in this section with Eren. When Eren was about to give up, he doesn't tell him what to choose or claiming that he has all the answers. He's just forcing him to make a choice and keep moving. And Historia makes that choice, first as a role that she has to play, and then as something that she takes on with pride as her own choice and following her own path. Speaking of Eren, he encountered a ton of growth in this section as well. He gained control of his powers a lot more in that he was able to, not really learn, he took the vial thing, but he was able to start hardening. They pushed him like crazy. There's a lot of manga only content that I'm referencing in this section, so if, not a lot, but there's several things like the confrontation with Levi pushing her to make a choice and saying like, I'm gonna keep fighting no matter what. And if you'll keep fighting too, then we can move forward in a more peaceful way. Like that whole section was manga only. And then the section 2, where they're really pushing him to test his abilities and to really try to get him to learn hardening. That's mentioned in the anime, but in the manga it's actually explored and we see exactly what he's able to do and at what point he sort of pushes himself so far that he loses himself and just starts thrashing on the ground and having flashes of his father and visions of Frida, and getting memories from other people that are getting unlocked when he's pushing himself too far. And like, it's a really interesting section. It doesn't take a ton of time, but anyway, so we see him pushing himself to the max and actually gaining more control over his abilities. But we also see him going from thinking that he deserves to be the main character of the story, thinking like, yeah, I hate Titans, but it makes sense that I would be a Titan, sure. Of course people are dying for me. I'm the one. I'm the answer. I'm it, right? So he goes from thinking he's special and thinking he's like a chosen one to realizing that, that it's not all about him. And in fact, wanting to hit that side of himself, like beat that ideal out of himself and instead move forward in more humility. I thought the scene in the cavern, when he believes that his father senselessly killed the Rice family and all of humanity is doomed because of it, he wants to step aside in a, tragic way. But he's like, go ahead, do what you have to do, Krista. If this is what's going to save humanity, then do it. Take this power from me. So he really switches his ideals from, of course it should be me, this is a burden on me, but I'm going to fight and I'm going to do it, to something that aligns a little bit more with his mother's ideals. And we got a great exploration of that through the character of Keith. We got to see his backstory, his history with Dr. Yeager, finding him outside of the walls with his memories gone, and working alongside of him, and then her name is Clara, marrying Dr. Yeager, and all that came with that. But then also Dr. Yeager instilled in him, or implanted in him, not implanted, he took on the ideal of Dr. Yeager that he is a chosen one, that he's special, that there's something amazing about him, something like what Aaron believed for a time as well. And it seems that both Keith and Aaron took on the ideals that Dr. Yeager said to them and really internalized that. But then they were also greatly moved and maybe even re-established their ideals through the perspective that Clara gently gave them as well. And I wonder how much of this is going to tie into the wider story as well. This idea, it seems a lot of ideas have been presented in this section of the story. And it seems that through the origin Titan, as well as the Rice family and the Bloodlines plot line that's been introduced, and these ideals of Dr. Yeager versus Clara, it seems that through many avenues, we're potentially moving into the possibility of exploring this ideal of being elite versus ideal of being worthy because you're born. Like, why do you need to be special? Why do you need to be revered? Why do you need to be thinking that, like, you inherently, because of who you are, how you were born, who you know, you're something, instead of just, like, because you're here, you're worth something. I wonder how much of the story is going to explore these ideas of free will, choosing your own path, your worth being reliant on your humanity as opposed to the way you were born. All of these things are things that are potentially presented in this section, but not yet explored to a point that I can say these are themes of the story, but they're things that I'm kind of picking up on and I recognize may or may not be explored. I hope this isn't annoying. I hope people aren't listening to me talk about all this and being like, maybe you could have just watched the second half of part 3 before talking about it, because you clearly don't know what you're talking about. But also, Aaron grew in this section in many ways, in the way he viewed how he needs to handle Bertolt and Reiner, in the way that he viewed the Titans, going from this desire to, like, I won't stop until every Titan is killed, to realizing the Titans are humans that are being tortured by their nightmares. And it just seems like Aaron's perspective on the world and on himself has shifted tremendously in this very small stretch. Dr. Yeager 2 is one that I don't fully know what to do with yet. It seems that he was trying to, what he did to the Rice family, he was doing to try to protect humanity. The Rice family is very evidently not just like this pure evil bloodline. Uri, I'm sorry I don't remember his name, Krista's uncle, he was obviously someone who cared about humanity and wanted to do what was right by everyone, as far as I can tell. That's what I've seen so far from him. Frida was a beautiful soul, a wonderful person for everyone that she encountered, it seemed, and really did her best with the burden that was put on her. And then obviously, even though Krista wasn't born alongside of the family, wasn't raised alongside of all of them, even like that bloodline, she's still part of it. And she is wonderful. Historia, Krista, whatever I'm supposed to call her at this point in the story. Rod, can choke on a lemon. But I'm just saying that obviously there's a lot more to be revealed on this whole conflict here, that's going to add a lot more layers to the motivations behind what's happening and to why people made the decisions that they made leading up to this. So I'm just kind of holding all of this, except for Rod, with open hands. Rod, my hand has crushed him. He's done. Bye. But I'm holding everything with open hands. So I'm excited to see what more is going to be shown to help me see how layered this situation potentially is. I've mentioned Kenny here and there. I just want to say that I have really loved the role that his character played. The way he was introduced, oh my goodness, the way he was introduced really had me believing that he was going to play a role to the end of this story. So I was really surprised when he died. I was really surprised when we finished. We're done with him now. But I'm really satisfied. I feel like he came in and he played the role that he needed to play for the time that he needed to play it, and then he was removed, which a lot of stories don't do that with their characters. And also, this is a story where characters don't have this grandiose character arc from start to finish. Sometimes they're cut off early because this is war. And I think that that's impactful. And I do think that Kenny left a strong print on the story with the role that he played, deepening our understanding of Levi's background, giving us this very complicated history with him of being this ruthless killer who used his incredible supernatural power, strength, for terror. And showing this like hardened resolve, but also showing that like, well, I'm not going to let the kid die. I'm not going to let the kid starve. So I'm not trying to be his dad, but yeah, I'll take him in. Yeah, I'll feed him. Yeah, I'll teach him how to survive. And then by the end, calling him his pride and joy. Still not wanting to reveal that they're related, which makes sense to me because he doesn't want to be tied down, because he doesn't want to surrender to that deeper bond and what that would be for him and for Levi, but still being all that he knew how to be for him. But then also his relationship with Krista's uncle, their friendship and their conflicting ideals, but they still walked alongside each other. And even his desire to take on the powers of the Titan, even his desire to be the one to kill Eren and to take on that. His desire was birthed from wanting to know if he was capable of experiencing compassion like what he saw in his friend. How are you able to keep talking to me like that? Is it because you have so much power that it gives you freedom? Hey, freedom! Not the same as free will. I'm just it kind of hit me like, hey, maybe I'm not just reading too much into it, but maybe I am. Will we all act the same way if only we had that kind of power? Can a piece of trash like me ever see the same kind of thing that you can see? He noticed that in his uncle, not his uncle, in Krista's uncle, and then in Frida herself, he noticed that whoever takes that on seems to have some incredible amount of compassion. And he wanted it too. And he wanted to see, am I capable of that? Am I capable of that kind of goodness? Can I be that? I have so many thoughts on Kenny, and I haven't recorded my vlog clip yet for that final, the final chunk of the story, volume 17 and the first half of 18. I'm going to do that after I film this. But I'm going to take some time to just kind of talk about Kenny in that video, because he's a character that had a very short time in the series, but I think the role he served it worked so well for me. Anyway, after all of this, I just think that it's really cool that after everything that's gone down, after all the history that I still don't even understand fully, that the Ackermans are now working alongside of the Rice family once again. This time, doing it their own way. Not in the same way that's been done in the past, but through the way that Historia and Levi would have it done. Whatever that'll look like, they're going to do it side by side. Supposedly. That's what's being set up for. And I think I love that kind of full circle of we broke the cycle, but here we walk. And I'm excited to see what it'll look like with them doing it. So we're moving forward to the basement. We are potentially finally going to see the basement. That seems to be on everybody's mind. That's our goal. We're doing that thing. And we're celebrating, and Jean and Aaron are fighting, and everybody is excited to finally, you know, instead of mocking the cadets or mocking the military and saying like, what good are you, which is what we've seen happen quite a bit throughout the story. Now everyone is cheering them on, and it's, you know, it's good vibes, and everybody's raising their arm, and it's this camaraderie, and we're all coming together, and it's amazing. And it ended, and when it ended, I thought, well, what an interesting way to end this section of the story. It seems like it feels good, it feels nice, but it seems like a surprising way to end. And then my patrons told me, don't stop yet. Watch the end credits, which I always skip the end credits, sorry. But I watched them this time, and I was like, okay, well, if something changes, I won't know. I won't notice. They're like, no, you'll notice. And it did like this Doki Doki Literature Club, like shorting out, glitching, terrifying images, and then we get a teaser for what's to come, which is not harmony. It is not working together. It is not peace. It is some kind of conflict. And I didn't dwell too much on it. I didn't watch the scene over and over again. I just let it be as a teaser. I let it have the effect it had, and now I'm just gonna go into the next section and let it play out. So, oh, I'm excited. Ooh, that was a great ending. That was a great way to make me very excited for whatever horrifying thing is coming. So, I loved this section. I feel like I've been talking for a long time, but I still haven't even covered half of what happened here. So it's just amazing that we have like a small chunk of the story that covers so much. And I'm really excited to see a lot of these things explored more and to see what the series is going to do with all the stuff that it's been setting up. So I know this video is out a day late. The vlog version of this will be Monday's video. I usually treat the vlog as like a bonus video, but I can't do it this time. Too much has been going on, and it's just gonna take me a couple days to edit that vlog. So that'll be up on Monday. If you love the story and this wasn't good enough, there will be more content there. Please do chat with me more in the comments. I'll see you again soon. Bye.